Anatomy of a SOC report. In this class, we want to talk about the SOC report, going to the various sections within the SOC report. The first section is the auditor's report. Here you'll find key information such as who the audit firm is, whether it's a carved out or an inclusive report, the scope and the auditor's opinion. The section 2, is the organization's management succession. This section essentially says that the organization will work with the auditor in good faith. And so over here, this is what the management is talking about, the assessment or the audit that actually was done. Then the sub 3 is a description of the system. Here, you'll be able to find the organization representation of the in-scope system in a narrative form. What are the boundaries that is involved? Sometimes this audit firm will put the complementary user entry controls here as well, because it wants to be able to help you to be able to address many topics, including the risk management activities, the controls that are in place, and sometimes they describe all of them as part of it, of what they did during the audit assessment. Section 4 is the actual layout of the control objectives and activities along with the testing and the results of the testing. So the section 4 here tells you what is being required of the organization to do. What is the goal of the organization that is going to achieve? When it was tested, which method was being used, and what is the results of the testing. Then the section 5, which is not on either example, it's an optional section, because in some sections or in some organizations, the section 5 is not part of it. Now, the section 5 will detail where the organization can provide unaudited information that may assist in understanding of the control environment. So in some environments where you realize that some of the controls, or when the organization realizes that this part was not audited, they can add other information. That is why we say that this section is optional. Now, common content of this section include their business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, contingency plan, change control procedures, and so on and so forth. Now, system description. The system description and the key components of the system description here is to determine if the vendor has provided the correct reports. The system description section of the report will detail the services and the products that are being provided. Multiple vendor services may have separate reports that needs to be done. And so this section describes what is the organization about. And that is where you can see the example over here, what the key components are when it comes to system description. Now, the sub-service organizations, service providers used by the vendor or the fourth parties. Now, reports should be able to clarify exactly how these fourth parties and sub-service organizations are being used, inclusive versus carved out methods. And all these things need to be detailed out for the assessment. Now, opinion. And this is one of the key things that is really, really important that you need to understand. You need to know what an unqualified opinion is, a qualified, a disclaimer, and an adverse. An unqualified opinion. When the auditor feels that the vendor's description fairly represents the system, controls were suitably designed, and in case of the type 2, the controls are operating effectively, the report is considered unqualified. It means everything is as it should be. In other words, you can say that this control or this system passed. Qualified opinion. A qualified opinion is where the vendor has at least one control objective that was not implemented or operated effectively. In other words, a qualified report indicates that issues have been identified in the report which were significant enough to deem one or more of the controls ineffective. And so you want to make sure, or you want to make a special note of that qualified opinion. In other words, it failed. And so that is what it means. So it's a little confusing because unqualified and qualified. But this time around it says unqualified opinion, meaning that all those opinions are not qualified compared to what we mean by a qualified opinion. Disclaimer. Disclaimer is used when there isn't any evidence to prove or disprove that a control wasn't being performed or was in place. This happens often on controls that surround what are hopefully rare occurrences, such as communicating incidents or breach to various clients. So it's like we need more evidences to make a decision on it. Adverse. An adverse opinion is just bad. This means that the vendor held back or modified information and needed to verify controls were either in place or operating effectively. And this is always a red flag. So whenever you are reviewing a SOC 2 report and you see anything adverse, you know that no, this is something that we need to be able to red flag it and have a conversation about it. Now, the testing of controls and evaluating results. What are the control objectives? SOC reports are built around the vendor's control objectives. Control activities that support the control objectives. The objectives are the goals that the company is or the organization are using to be able to achieve. Now, the control and the test. Auditors create tests for those activities where they may review, observe, or interview or to determine whether the control is in place, and for the type 2, whether the control is operating effectively. And so all these are tested, and the control and the test for these activities needs to be reviewed, observed over a period of time, and interviews are being conducted sometimes. Exceptions. Now, exceptions occur when not every sample tested passed. Look at those, rate them, review management's response if one wasn't given. Ask the vendor for one or ask for more evidences. And you need to make sure that you are looking for mitigation steps or ways to be able to mitigate these exceptions that are being generated. Then significant deficiencies. When a control or a combination of controls are shown not to be working as designed, or if the control is performed or is being performed by someone unqualified to do so, then we have material weaknesses. These come from testing showing that controls are not functioning, resulting in clients not being able to rely on that function of the vendor, meaning that the material that are being created are effective. Now, the impact. Now, whenever you are looking at impact of a report, you need to look at the opinions. Now, if not, how is the organization addressing these issues? And that's where the management assessment also comes in. So you need to be able to look at, for you to look at the impact, you need to look at the good side and the bad side. The bad side is where the exceptions are where you're asking questions. The opinion is how is the organization addressing the issues or the opinions that have been generated. Now the exceptions, you are asking, is the management's response sufficient? Are there other controls or procedures in place that can give you that assurance that, hey, this is working effectively? Or does this directly impact the service provided? And that is something that you also have to be able to look at. Then what we call the control design. What is control design? Now, control design talks about the fact that it's vendors write control activities that are audited against. And so those activities that are being written by the vendor, those are what we call the designs. So tools are better about this due to the fact that they are following the 5 trust principles. So they need to write how effective all these are within the 5 trust principles. Then we call the control complexity can vary between various vendors. Remember, SOC reports are not created equally. Every organization comes up with its own design on how they are meeting the design. So we know, so in organization, you can test the control design and you can also test the control effectiveness. The design is whether they have that in place. Now, if they have it in place, is it working effectively? And that is where the effectiveness comes in. I hope you enjoyed a bit of this SOC 2 anatomy that we did and a breakdown and understand the various sections of the SOC 2. I'll catch you up in the next class.